Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of our series of how to take off and land the ship. In this video, we'll be focusing on actually taking off and landing the ship, as I've said. We're not going to be able to move the ship in any particular way, just up and down, set using physics, so that's going to be very important and very neat to do. And then we're going to explore the movement a little bit in part 3. But if you do want to implement ship movement through and through, please follow my tutorial where I teach you how to fly a ship. But if you do watch part 3, I do go through some of those concepts and what is needed to just get the ship up and running, really, as the system is not complex. I mean, there's only a couple of nodes really to get it going, and then you can build on top of that and make it more complex. But let's not delay it any further, and let's begin this tutorial. Just remember, if you comment and subscribe to the channel, the people will be drawn at the end of the month. We'll be going through and pick a winner to get all my content from ArtStation, Gumroad, Patreon, or Creo. So if you're interested in any of my content, please have a look in the description below. But if you comment and subscribe, you will get a chance of winning all of that at the end of the month of January. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, appreciate the feedback and the and for you to watching this tutorial. So let's begin. Now we are back to where we left off in the Unreal Engine project in the previous tutorial. The only difference is that I have changed the cube using the previous tutorial to this ship. And you can easily do this by editing the blueprint again, and then in here select the ship that you've set up. You would have a cube in here, but you can replace that with anything that you want. In my case, I've used this ship. So there's literally no difference. If I press play now, and I use the first person character to go within that box collision there, I will be able to possess this ship, but I won't be able to do anything else. So as you can see, I am now in first person. I click the F button and I am now possessing the ship. And if I press F again, I will be ejected on top of the ship, and that's because if you look at the box collision, the center of it is at the top of this ship. But that's why you have the flexibility to move this box collision anywhere else. So then you can eject into another point of the ship, or you can also enter through there. So that's a very interesting thing. And you can also have a box where you can use it to enter the ship, and then another box to be ejected to when you press the F key again. Right, so now let's continue with what we were doing. In this particular video, like I've said, we want to be able to lift the ship and put it down. So we're going to go back into our blueprint. The first thing that I want to do is, with the ship selected, we need to go in here and press simulate physics and make sure enable gravity is also on. I would also use the linear damping and angular damping, put that to 1, and this will make sense in just a little bit of time. Right, so now we are not going to use the exit or enter anymore. We're just going to leave them as they are. We're going to go in the event graph instead. But before we can do anything in the event graph, we need to create a button mapping, an axis mapping that will allow us to be able to push the ship up and down. So in the project settings, in the input tab, we can then press where we see axis mapping, we can press the plus button. And then we can name this to, let's call it takeoff. And then I'm going to use C to go up, and I'm going to press this plus button here, and I'm going to use V to go down. So C is 1 and V is -1. Okay, with that done, we can now right click in here and we can have a look for takeoff, and that's the axis event. It's this is the button, and you can see we can execute, and we also have an axis value. Now for us, in order for the ship to be going up and down and also use physics like I've previously mentioned, we will need a thruster. So with the ship selected, I'm going to press the add button, and I'm going to look for thruster, which is this physics thruster. With that added in, we can now change some settings. Like, for example, we need to make sure that it auto activates. So this means that whenever you play the scene, this will pretty much trigger the moment the scene starts. Now, if we have a look in the viewport, you'll be able to see this thruster, and it's right there in the center of the ship. If we compile now, we go into the main and press play, we'll see the ship, it just rocked a little bit, and then if we press F, again, nothing can be done, but you did see the ship rocking a bit. And I can also push the ship away because it's got physics enabled now, so it's simulating some physics, okay? Now let's get out of the play mode and go back into our blueprint. One thing that we want to do is in the event graph, we want to start giving this button some things to be doing. So we can actually take this pin and drag it over here and type in set thruster, and you've got, you know, set active physics thruster. So if you press that button, you'll get this, but this is not exactly what I want. What I want instead is I want to be able to set the thruster strength. So for us to get that, we will need to reference the thruster. So if I actually drag it with control pressed and click over here, this will put the thruster in the blueprint to be edited, or I can just drag it in here and it will do the same thing. You don't have to hold control or alt for that, because you're always going to get this. You can't set it. So if we drag from this pin and we type in thruster strength, we'll be given two options: get thruster strength and set thruster strength. And at this point, we want to be able to set it. So we've got this, and it can be executed. And we've got this value in here that we want to be able to set. So in order for us to do that, we'll use our axis. So I'm just going to drag in here a pin, and I'm going to look for a multiply. With that multiply in there, I am going to multiply this, let's say, by 500 for now. So that will be our axis value times 500. And I can then put this into a divide like that. I'm going to explain what I'm doing here anyway, but so this pin is 500, but this pin in here, we want to divide this value by the Z value of our mesh. So this all will ensure that, for example, whenever your ship is turned upside down, then the same thing. If you press those axes, it will take the up vector of the ship. So it won't take the world up. It will take the ship up. So if you look here, this tip here is the up of the ship. So if it rotates like that, the up of the ship will be here. But the world will still be up here as it was before. So let's just go back into the event graph, and I'm going to type in get actor up. For some reason this is not showing up, so let me just untick the context sensitive. So we've got it, but this is, you can see it here, it's now giving us a vector value and it's putting it in here, but we only need the Z value. So I'm going to right click this, and you have an option in here where it says actually, where is it? So watch this value, select break this link now. Why is it not showing this thing up? It should allow me to break this into multiple parts. Well, the reason why it's not allowing me to do that is because I have to actually first disconnect it, because it doesn't know what you want to sort of split it into. So now when you right click it, you get this option where it says split struct pin. So when you press that, it will give you three float values, and then we use the Z value and we put it in here like that. Now what we want to also do is we want to multiply this value by the mass of our mesh. So I'm just going to drag a pin over here and look for a multiply. And with that done, I am in here. I want to get the mass. I'm just going to type in get mass, and it doesn't show me the get mass of the ship, but that's fine. We can just probably do the get mass like that, and then we'll drag the ship from here and drop it on this target, and then we can input that into here. One very interesting thing as well, by the way, is that for some reason this has remained a vector. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to unpin this, and I believe if I drag this in, yeah, it will become both. But you can see it's not allowing me to do that, which is a bit of unfortunate, so I'm gonna have to delete both of these and then add a divide here and now reconnect them, because it just wasn't converting. This is a new feature in Unreal Engine 5. It wasn't converting to a full-on float a value that I was trying to push through, right? So sometimes when you generate them through pins, this may happen. Okay, so this value goes into our thrust strength. Okay, now we can compile, and let's press the play button and see what happens. Okay, so I'm just gonna go to the ship. I'm gonna press F, and now if I press C or V, which should play that animation, nothing is really happening. So let's have a look why this is going on. One of the reasons why we can't get this running is because we haven't yet accounted for the gravity of Unreal Engine. So I'm going to drag a pin from here, and I'm going to add a plus sign. I'm going to hook this up into this multiply over here. And then I'm not going to use this for now, but instead I'm going to modify this to 970 and press compile. And now if I press play and go to the ship, I press the button, as you can see, it's actually going backwards or forward, or sorry, or backwards. Well, actually it just goes backwards, and the main reason for that is because our thruster is not actually in the correct position. So if you go in the viewport in here, what we want to do is we want to turn it upside down on the as you can see, we've turned it on this axis. Yeah, so in this particular case that will be the y-axis. Okay, so that we turn it by 90 degrees. Let's press play. And now let's have a look again. So now I press C. As you can see, it's actually lifting up. But it's also going backwards. So let's just press play again. I'll show you this. So when I go and I possess it, you see it's floating. It's actually lifting on its own without me even pressing a button. And then it just goes backwards and falls. Now, this is quite cool for a very nice cinematic movement, but as you can see, it just keeps doing this over and over again. And by the way, if I press the key, we'll just do it a lot faster. So we need to sort out our center of gravity for this in order to fix it. So what we're going to do in the event graph, I'm just gonna go at I'm going to start, set up the gravity point, which is a very important part of this whole thing. We need to bring our physics thrusters again in here. We also want to do this on the event begin play, so we're going to use this to set the center of mass. So I'm actually going to drag a pin over here and type in set center of mass. And we've got it in here. We've got a location that we're going to set. We're setting the center of mass of the ship, so let me just put that in the target in there as well. There's nothing we want to do with the bone. We're not going to use the bone for anything, but we can right click this and split the structure pin, because we need to set the center of mass for the X and Y values, and we'll leave the Z value at 0. In these two nodes in here, we can add a rotate vector. So I'm just going to search for a rotate vector. And then the return value in here, we can right click it and split the structure of it and put the X and the Y value inside. Now we have a rotator and we have a vector that we need to input. So for that, from the physics thruster, we're going to get our world location. And for some reason it feels the need to put this display name in here. This is not what I want, because I've got the wrong world location. So let me just type that in again. Get world location for transformation. So I'm going to put that in the target, and this can, we'll connect this in just a little bit, but we need to also bring in the ship in here, and we need to get the center of its mass before we set up before we set a new one. So I'm going to put that in there. Again, nothing for the bone. And then we want to get the ship again, and we want to get the world rotation. And with these values, we can invert the rotator of the world rotation, because as you've seen, it was obviously going a bit backwards anyway, so I'm just going to put that in there. And then in here, we want to divide, well, not divide, we want to subtract the center of mass from the world location. So, and we're doing this at vector level, so I'm just going to look for the subtract, hook these both in here, and then connect them this way. But now, if we, we've got all of that put together, but we also then need to go back into here and make sure that we're actually, we're connecting the up vector of our mesh as well. So let me just do that as well. Now with all of that done, let's compile and let's have a look. If we press the play button in here and we try to possess the ship, as you can see, the ship is starting to move on its own. I didn't actually press anything, but if I do press C value, the C letter, it does go up. So as you can see, it's sort of going crazy, still not working properly. So let me just possess it very quickly, and then I'm going to press the V axis. So I'm just pressing the V. This keeps it in place because it's literally telling it to go downwards. Now if I press C, it will go up, but it will again just sort of stumble backwards. And the reason for that is because our thruster over in here, although we've rotated it, it needs to be above here, so it needs to be above the mesh that you're trying to push down. So let's just put it around there and see how that functions. I'm going to compile and press play, and now I'm going to go and take over the ship. And as you can see, it's still sort of doing it a little bit, so it's important that we sort of center this in such a way that it's no longer doing it. So if we bring it upwards, let me just compile and press play again. It's still doing it. Let me just try and bring it backwards then and see if that, I'm just going to put it up even more. So let me just press play again, see what happens. As you can see, it's still doing it, which is a bit, yeah, it's a bit pissing me off actually. Let me just put this to 0, and I'm going to put it even further up, compile and press play. Okay, it's still sort of lifting up, but not as much. Let me just push it even further. It's really to do with where the mass of this object is, and that is what's mainly causing it. Now, one thing I can also do in here, if I click the ship and deactivate gravity, I believe this will then keep the the ship now floats quite a lot. So that's definitely not what I want. It's very interesting because I've got the linear damping and gravity on. So let me just, it's all about this thruster setup. Actually, if I go in the blueprint again in the event graph, let me just unplug this, plug it straight in here, compile and see if I'm getting the same issue. Yeah, I'm still getting that issue. So let me just have a look. I'll move this a little bit like that, and going to the thruster, it's still going up, which is not what I want. So instead, what I'll be doing is I will take this node out because it's basically adding 970 to this tick. So I'm just going to remove this and instead use it this way, like that. And then also I'm going to select the ship. And make sure I've got gravity off. So I'm simulating physics, but I'm not adding any gravity value to the ship. In the viewport, we can have a look at the thruster. We can actually put it to where it was, 0. Oh, sorry, not the box, the physical thruster. So I'm just gonna put it somewhere around here. Should be fine. And then I'm going to compile. In here, let's just make sure that the ship is not overlapping with anything. So it has to be sort of like that, so it's not really going inside. So I'm going to press play now and see what happens. The ship, as you can see, has not moved. I can still push the ship. I'm going to now take over. So I have, and you can see the C and V value are allowing me to go up and down. So let me just try that again, press play. go to the ship, press F, the ship is not moving anywhere. I press the C value, it's going up, and I press the V value, it's going down. Okay, and as you can see, it does have a sort of a momentum to it as well, so it doesn't stop straight away. Okay, now we don't have any roll or pitch or anything like that to it, and we can't move forward as of yet, but we'll get to that in just a second. So to do a bit of explaining here, on the event begin play, we want to set the center of the mass of our ship. We want to set it to match with the world location of our physics thruster. So we're doing this by dividing that by the center of the mass of the ship that we currently have. So this is when we press the play button over here, we have a center of mass of the ship. So we are dividing the world location of our physics thrusters by the center of the mass, and then we're also taking the world rotation of our ship. We're inverting that rotator into a rotate vector. So we're using the transform, the new transform that we got from dividing the world location of our physics thruster by the center of mass. So we're plugging that into our rotate vector, and then we're setting the center of mass for the X and the Y value from the rotate vector of these two nodes in. So you can say we are negating rotator A, but we are then rotating the transform A by B, and then we're getting this as well, done in here as well. And this ensures that, as I said, the physics thruster location and the center mass, well, actually the center mass of our ship is in the position of our physics thruster. And that will be the end of part 2. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I mean, there's quite a bit of information in there of how you can just pretty much start the ship, go up and down with it. But obviously, looking at part 3, we're going to jump straight into rotating, adding some velocity, some momentum going forward, and then also going up and down. Just remember, the project file is available on Patreon. You can get it from there. It's also available on Creo for again, for people to just get. It's not, you don't need to subscribe, you don't need to really do anything. You can just get it, and it's yours to keep and to play around with. And I'll see if I'll make an even a better, more advanced version of this. But this is purely there to put you guys on the right track to be able to enter the ship, exit the ship, take off, land the ship, and then also with part 3 to be able to fly the ship, give or take. But the more advanced controls for flying are available in the previous tutorial that I posted. So I'll see you guys in part 3.